Hi, good afternoon, everybody. Uh, this is Avinash here, and it's a pleasure to host everyone here. So, as part of the risky business agenda, right, we have been covering different parts of identity and access management landscape. So, earlier we covered identity and governance component along with our partner SailPoint, and in this session we will be talking more on the access management, single sign-on, and customer side of identity management, as well as also how do we provide a kind of seamless user experience to all our staff and stakeholders. So I would like to invite Christina, who is from Ping ID, and she will introduce herself, and uh, she will be the main presenter today. Uh, you can put your questions or queries in the chat anytime, and we'll be monitoring it. And we'll be taking it up as we progress along. Towards the end of the session, we will have a formal Q&A as well. So you feel free to ask us any of these items that we are presenting or anything that you have in your mind in the IAM space. So over to you, Christina.
Thanks so much for the introduction, Avinash. Really appreciate it. My name's Christina Tubb, and I lead enterprise sales for Ping Identity here in Singapore. And today we're going to be covering identity and access management, and not just the industry itself, but really what will be the next wave of customer and workforce identity. We're going to cover new threats to identity that you really should be aware of, where the industry is moving to counteract those threats, and opportunities for aligning digital user experiences and security to drive more revenues. I'm sure you probably know Ping Identity. We cover over half of the Fortune 100, 9 out of 9 of the largest US banks, 7 out of 10 of the largest global healthcare brands, 4 out of 6 of the largest global aerospace, and many of the world's top retailers, including 5 of 8 of the largest in North America. Our team here in Asia Pacific is growing pretty rapidly with some fantastic new customers. So we'd be delighted to follow up with you afterwards with Avinash and the team to have a conversation around Ping Identity. So let's talk about this new battleground. So AI is the new battleground, and everything that we have built our whole world of trust around is getting completely upended. So what happens when you can't trust what you hear? We did an experiment recently with our CEO who recorded himself, where we had an AI generate a message with him saying, hey, I'm in a taxi right now. I'm trying to access some slides so that I can do an investor presentation. Nothing's working. Are you able to reset my password to XYZ so that I can go and access these slides? It sounds like him. The cadence is like him. And because there's enough of our CEO up online, it even had the same sort of words that he typically uses. So when AI can mimic your voice in unauthenticated channels, how will you really know who you're talking to? And the very concept of human recognition is about to come under attack. As a society, we're not ready for this. Trust, which for us has always been based on recognizing someone based on visuals, based on auditive cues, this is soon going to be a relic of our past. And this means we need to evolve. For a long time, MFA has been the solution. And when all you have is a hammer, everything looks like a nail. Today, we're going to start talking about how we can get more creative, shifting from using hammers to using Pokeballs, something my daughter has been educating me on quite a lot of late. So let's dive in. So this shift driven by AI it's amazing and scary, and it's having the impact of putting identity squarely at the center of security. The identity data that you manage, whether for workforce users, customers, B2B, vendors, partners, or machines, it's becoming more strategic than ever. And as a result, identity is now under attack. And so us as an industry, it's our collective duty to fortify the identity control plane. But we've got our work cut out for us for a few reasons. Identity is now the thin red line between hackers and the money that they're looking to steal. And while zero trust, something which we do a lot on the IAM side and in partnerships with our IGA and PAMA compatriots, we're working to shrink our surface area of attack. Every day there are more users, more devices, and more channels. This challenges us with greater complexity. And as we centralize, it actually gives us, in some ways, a greater concentration of risk. I'm sure everybody saw some of the recent attacks in Las Vegas. This means that now more than ever, we must be absolutely vigilant. Now, while things like account takeover and new account fraud are not new, the pace and the sophistication of these attacks is growing. Identity attacks are on the rise. And in fact, the majority of concerns that we see in breaches that we see in the industry are actually identity related. So these are the statistics for the most common the breaches and the drivers behind them. So what does this mean for us? Fraud is the goal, right? And it's not just in end user and customer accounts, because why compromise one account when you can compromise them all? And this is where privileged access and workforce identity is so important. And furthermore, hackers, they're not just focused on transactions. We need to shift left and actually identify the bad actors earlier in the cycle so that we're not spending a lot of money taking these bad actors through the customer journey. This is one of the reasons why we at Ping Identity are focused on risk signals. We must protect every step of the identity lifecycle, from verification, through new account creation, through authentication, and then authorization. And this is why you see right here, it's not just an MFA or don't MFA. It's deny, approve, or other. This means tailor journeys depending on what's happening on the exact session and the device on which a digital user is trying to access your assets. So let's get into this. There's a big evolution in the attack surface. Okay, as an industry, we're not standing still. Every decade or so, we at Ping Identity and as an industry as a whole, we've changed the game. About 20 years ago, every app had identity embedded in it. Many weak doors. Identity experience was fragmented. And you know what? Many of you may actually see this if you don't yet have a workforce single sign-on application. Hackers had a lot of passwords to choose from, and they focused and still do focus on stealing credentials. Today, many of our customers at Ping Identity around the world have managed to centralize identity. This really strengthens authentication. We're moving more and more towards passwordless. We're adding risk signals. And this has allowed us for some of the top organizations in the world to fortify identity while shrinking the surface area through authorization. The next step in this, though, is going to be a big paradigm shift. It's going to be moving from centralized authentication and authorization towards centralized credential issuance and distributed credential management. So in the coming years, we're going to be distributing strong, decentralized credentials bound to hardware wallets to end users. This means they get better privacy, better user control, and decentralized identity. And this shift is happening today. And this is not fiction. This is really happening with top banks in Europe, and it's going to be coming out more and more in our region. And what this means is these verifiable credentials are going to reinvent the whole notion of federation, MFA, passwordless, and verification as we know it. And it's going to drive more and more convergence around the IT and OT access controls, with the phone being the bridge. This is a big shift. Let's dive into the current state of centralized identity in the here and now, and where the vast majority of our customers are working. This means identity-defined security to protect users, apps, and their data. For every attack vector, brute force, dictionary, password spray, credential stuffing, we've responded. With each and every step, we've made it harder and harder for hackers to get in between MFA, password policies, passwordless, and risk signals. However, for many of these, such as password policies, it's actually increasing complexity for the end users and sometimes for the industry. So authentication has been this big attack vector. And as an industry, we spend a lot of time here. Here's where Ping Identity is taking it. We're simplifying these mitigations by leveraging AI to take care of a lot of the decisioning on your behalf. And on the authorization side, we're fortifying how we manage data. Okay, so the future of authorization is going to be centralized, dynamic, and fine-grained. And we're going to be integrating, if it's on a workforce side with your IGA providers, and on a customer identity side, we're going to be working with all of your data warehouses and data lakes. Now, to make this happen, we need strong standards. So if you look in Australia, we've sat behind consumer data rights for Australia and open banking. And in the UK, open banking was actually built on Ping Identity just to prevent authorization attacks. Moving forward, though, social engineering attacks are becoming more and more easy to launch with AI. Spear phishing in particular, we've seen that spear phishing, AI-driven, actually outperforms human-based spear phishing because they don't make any grammatical errors and they can mimic things far, far better, the AI tools. So what we're doing now is we're not just leveraging MFA and security awareness training, but we're getting into behavioral analysis, automatic feedback, and automated warnings. So if something bad happens, perhaps sending a message into the MS Teams channel for your system administrators. Now, this is not just the accounts that the bad actors are after, though. And so as we scope back access and we're adding more real-time controls, we need extra protections on our infrastructure. We need to make sure that our infrastructure is configured correctly. We need to make sure we can see our attacks in real time. We need to know how to recover if we're compromised. And immutable infrastructure is our last line of defense. Automation will be key. And so we're working extraordinarily closely within the zero trust global organizations to make sure that we have a joint identity fabric and we can do joint end-to-end configurations and response playbooks using partners like Turnkey who represent multiple vendors in this space. So we've covered a few things, right? And for me, one of the big things is as impersonation and cloning come through, we need to look at AI's ability to impersonate a behavior, clone a voice, deepfake our likeness, engineer sophisticated social engineering attacks, expose our infrastructure, or prey on the unsuspecting. Even worse, it can attack our sense of safety and well-being if we don't know if the person who's calling us is actually that person. So this is coming, right? It's black or white. So everything's going to be a shade of gray. Waking up to a cloudy day, saying, "Well, is this actually my grandmother on the phone, or is this just AI impersonating my grandmother?" So trust becomes that weakest link. But what is trust if not the gap between what we know to be true and what we hope to be true? And we're heading into a world where that gap is dangerous, right? And what we're doing is we're actually going to need to verify more. So zero trust means it's not just going to be doing what we've done in the past, but we're going to be breaching this gap right here of verification. So an idea that we can go ahead and trust, then verify, which is kind of 1980s, let's be honest. In 2023, it's really become verify always. So if identity is the new perimeter, this means that authenticated is the new authentic. And that's going to be the line between what's real or what's presumed to be fake. Because with the content farm of fake with AI, it's just got real. And our past default of trust first, verify later will no longer work for us. And nothing is more dangerous than trusting the untrustworthy. In short, unauthenticated channels are toast. What we used to rely on, it doesn't work anymore. We can't trust audio or video or even messages or even a phone to some extent. So we have to work together as an industry very hard and very fast to make sure that we're ready for this. And where we're going is we're operating under the assumption that AI for bad is going to outstrip AI for good. And we're setting up for really a war of the AIs. And the scope of identity is growing in this area. So with Ping Identity, we're 100% focused, as the name suggests, on identity. We're 100% focused on taking all of the inherent complexity behind your end users' journeys and the myriad of systems with which they may be working. And the whole idea is that if we don't keep pace, if we don't architect for agility, then we can't move fast enough. Custom cement will no longer suffice, and one-size-fits-all solutions will no longer suffice. So what if you could tailor your approach, right? What if you could find the nice edge between user experience and security? So when someone's opening an account, we can start to fight off the most common threats at account opening, such as bots and emulators, stolen identities, synthetic identities. When they're logging in, we'll be looking out for account takeovers and credential stuffing. At a transaction, we'll be looking for those fraudulent transactions and claims. And an update profile, it's going to be around account takeover, PII scraping. And then on the support side, anything involving impersonation, scams, and social engineering. So this is the customer journey that we'll be looking at. And what we're doing at Ping Identity is to introduce only minimal targeted friction. That's very much that Pokeball approach that sits on the nice edge between user experience and security. By doing this, we're able to guide our users better. We're investing very heavily in orchestration because end user experience, it's no longer optional, but over complexifying our life is not going to get us where we need to go. So at Ping Identity, we help you to pre-configure, and we've got a full library of templates for how you can orchestrate your user journeys for your customers, your B2B users, and your workforce. And by doing that, we allow our customers, such as yourselves, so you could accelerate your digital initiatives, optimizing experiences and having integrations for each service. It would become a lot better to be able to secure digital interactions, whether through eKYC, protecting your data privacy, securing your APIs, fraud prevention, and transaction approval. And you can make life a lot easier for your customers and your end users. So leading brands are already reaping the rewards from this journey. PayPal has been an early adopter. They've taken on our PingOne DaVinci orchestration engine. They've integrated that with AI-driven risk signals, and they've brought that into their user journeys. So this means that they've actually increased their security at the same time as reducing friction. So MFA prompts are reduced from multiple times a day to once a week for their staff. Customer experience is better, much fewer login abandonments, and password reset help desk tickets have dropped by 30%. Across the world, what we're seeing with the use of these new technologies and tools is an 88% reduction in end user friction, which leads to lost revenues, wasted employee time, phishing vulnerability. So we're going to reduce that friction by 88%. We're seeing a 20 to 40% reduction in man hours spent managing and onboarding security of applications, scaling directories, all of that. We're seeing new experiences go out 5 times faster than in the past. And we're seeing benchmarks of over 400% increase in threat detection through our behavioral analytics. Typical payback depends on how complex your environment is and how long it takes to go live. Usually speaking, though, under 18 months. So in short, more than any other moment in the history of the identity industry, identity is really under attack, right? And we've got a common goal, which is to keep good people safe on the internet. And authentication and authenticity is the front line of this. Not just our security, but our sense of sort of trust and security overall is really important. So we as an organization, we're here to help you adapt and thrive, right? It's going to be a challenging decade as the whole world kind of comes to grips with all these new technologies, and we've got to be really nimble and very focused. We're very focused on identity and identity security and identity journeys. So how do we make this happen? Oftentimes, one of the challenges is, you on this phone, you all understand what's going on here, but articulating that to senior stakeholders can sometimes be a bit challenging. So what we'll do is we'll sit there and we'll do a conversation with you. We'll do a custom business value solution session. You can reach out. You've got our emails there directly, or reach out to the Turnkey team to set this up. We'll walk you through some industry benchmarks, and we'll bring in our value team to collect some data to look at what that business case can be for improving how we treat our identity strategy. We'll validate and we'll review the data and assumptions there, and then we'll calculate a multi-year value and ROI with you. Off the back of that, we'll have our experts help you to create an identity best practices roadmap, which might look something such as building the foundation, really, so cleaning up single sign-on, MFA, directory access, and orchestration, then adding on elements to make security more adaptive, and then starting to transform experiences down the road. We'll operate at the pace that works best for you. And as we go through this, you know that you're working with a partner who can help you to simplify creating those digital journeys, who can help you to future-proof your identity program, and who can, above all, offer seamless integrations with drag-and-drop flexibility. So I hope you've enjoyed our time here today. I'm going to turn it over to see if anybody has any questions for us at the end of the session.
Yes, we have. Thanks, Christina. It was a really pretty informative session, and I know we covered a lot. So I'd like to request, if any of you are interested in some of these details or the slides, do write to us and we will share the same. So there is a question between authentication and authorization. What should be prioritized when it comes to an IAM program?
Ooh, that's a loaded question.
Yeah.
Look, this is part of why we typically would work with you on the best practices roadmap. If you're looking at a customer identity experience, most of the time we would say start on authentication, right? And use a secure API gateway. And then we'll layer on authorization as a secondary layer. It's on the workforce side of things. It's a slightly different ballgame. And a lot of that's going to depend on your regulatory constraints. But overall, what we do typically see is if you don't have a way to, authentication is like changing the locks on your front door. If you don't have any locks on your front door, then you've got a pretty big problem. So typically we do recommend starting with that one first and then moving on to the next.
Yeah, and I'd just like to add, based on different engagements we are doing in the identity and access management spaces, it also depends on the level of maturity, because it's not that you may have nothing. You will still have some of the things that are working, and depending on the level of maturity of some of these different towers within different components of the end-to-end IAM landscape, you need to put it. I mean, ideally, I would like to do both. Why to choose one when I can do both in less time? Because in one of the slides, Christina did mention that with the adoption of some of the solutions from the Pink identity, you can reduce the effort required to onboard new systems or integrate new systems and make it more secure, as well as increasing the user experience by reducing the friction. So actually, it's not a question of this one or that one. You can actually achieve both of them, and possibly you can achieve both of them in less than 70 or 50% of the time, what you think will take for only one of them. So you can actually go ahead and do that part. So that's the way we look at it. I have one more quick question, and I would encourage everyone to put your questions in the chat, and we still have another 5 minutes in the session, so feel free to ask us. But I'll go ahead with one more question here, Christina. That when we're talking about zero trust, and so zero trust has become more of a slogan, and considering that it's getting very difficult to bring everybody to the office, so remote work is now common default thing for most of us, even though yeah, few organizations are trying to push for at least 2 days, 3 days kind of environment. But again, we always go and try to protect the weakest link, right? So people can. So in that scenario, identity is certainly the perimeter. Identity security is the new perimeter. And so how do you suggest, like specifically for an organization which is kind of spread across different geographies and people are working from different locations? So do you throw some light on some of the quick wins the organizations can achieve, considering that they cannot force everybody to come to the office, and that physical gate doesn't work anymore as a security?
Yes. All right. Now that's a great question. So it's a pretty foundational element to zero trust, which is to stop using the network as your perimeter for security, right? And to stop relying on putting something behind a VPN, and to start using the actual user's identity and behavior. So typically speaking, one of the top things that we'll see for remote workers is going to be around behavioral analysis. So if a user is logging in from their home office where they typically log in, or from a cafe where they typically work, and they're opening the applications they typically open, then that's one layer, right, for us to be able to trust them. But then the second layer is going to be, what if there's a man-in-the-middle attack at that cafe? So it's an IP they typically use, but then a user starts operating in a different way. And this is where our Ping1 Protect capabilities come into play. So I'll just pop this one right up here. It's going to be our risk signals. So let's say the user typically uses a Chrome browser on their Macintosh computer, and then there's off of a particular IP address from the cafe they'll often work from on Wednesdays. But then the user that does the man-in-the-middle attack starts coming on, but they're operating in Chrome and their language is set to a different language than usual. We're going to note that that's different from that user's typical behavior, and we're going to be able to ask them to step up. So this risk intelligence element with Ping1 Protect, I would say for most organizations, is a very quick and easy win to be able to help take your organization towards a zero trust posture without having to do a lot of hard coding or manual insights.
Okay, great. We still have some time for last question. So do ask us the questions. In the meantime, I'll go ahead and ask this one question, which we always hear. Let's see, if I want to start a project today, what is a typical time frame that I can look forward to, both from a workforce side as well as the, let's say, the client side or the mobile app if I'm launching or enhancing? So what's the typical time then when we start seeing the benefit of this? I can go ahead with the MVPs. What's your view?
Great question. Ping Identity has a Ping1 Cloud platform, or our SaaS platform. We have private tenant and we have on-premises. We've had go lives as fast as a few short weeks with our SaaS platform. We had a customer with Workforce that went live and migrated off of another cloud platform in a week and a half. But typically, once you do have 500, 100, 500, 1,000, 2,000 applications in a workforce context, you're going to want to spend some time doing some scripting. to go and automate the migration of those systems. For that reason, the ping part's usually pretty easy, but the change management will take a bit more time. So I typically recommend something between 2 and 9 months, depending on how many applications you have to migrate across. Ironically, customer identity is actually oftentimes faster because you don't have to integrate with quite so many stakeholders and quite so many applications.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks a lot, Christina, for spending some really good time and sharing some good content. We are almost on the top of the hour, so thank you, everybody, and appreciate your presence.
Thank you.
Thank you.